Hello, I hope that you are doing fine. Today we are going to cover the material in chapter 3, and the first thing that we are going to study is the boss sizing and the block and inline elements. Okay, let's move on. As usual, the first thing that we are going to do is to create a folder in our code folder. That is basically I'm going to create a new folder that is going to call chapter 3. This is the first thing. Now we go to Visual Studio and I'm going to open that folder, chapter 3. And here we are going to start to type the code. And basically what I'm going to do is now I'm going to minimize this, but not that much, to maximize this size. File, I'm going to create a new file that I'm going to name box block inline HTML. Okay, this is the first thing. I create this file, and here as usual we create the boilerplate for our HTML document, and we type exclamation mark and enter. I'm going to erase this. I have explained all these elements in the first section. Then we are going to keep here the minimum that we need. The title, we are going to type here boss block and inline elements. This is the first thing. The second thing that we are going to do is to create two divs. The first one is going to be div. I'm going to create a class of div1, and here basically I'm going to type this div is smaller width is 300 pixels and height is 100 pixels. Okay, this is the first div, and the second, I want to move this down, and the second I'm going to create another div. I copy this, I introduce a line break here, br, and I copy this and is bigger. I want to type here bigger, and this is going to be a different class that is called class number 2. Okay, and now inside the head I go to create the style for these two divs that we have created. Style, and here basically what we are going to define is the two classes div1 and div2. The first class is div1, and here I'm going to define the properties of this class. In particular, the width is going to be 300 pixels, the height is going to be 100 pixels. I'm going to introduce a border to make this visible of 1 pixel and solid blue. This is the first thing that we are going to do, and for the second div is basically the same. Then I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to modify some of these properties. I rename this by div2. Here we are going to introduce the color is going to be red instead, and here what we are going to introduce is a padding of 50 pixels. Okay, now we save this, and now what we are going to do is to open this with live server. This is something that is here is basically, if we go to our extensions, you have to find here an extension that is called live server, live server that I have already installed. Then basically you have to install this in your computer. I have already installed it, and this is a very useful extension because allows us give us the opportunity to open this directory. If I right click in the mouse and I click open with live server, I will open this directory in the browser. This is basically what we have created so far. What we have created is two boxes that have the same width and the same height, but this second box, the red box, is basically taking into consideration also the padding, and this is something that we don't want, because we want that when we define the size of a box, all the boxes have that size. And this is basically what we are going to do, introducing the box sizing style. Then to do that is very simple. If we go now to our file, and in the diffs we introduce the next property, we introduce box sizing, and we type border box, and we do the same in both diffs, Control S. Now we save this. I'm going to show you how this works straight away. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to push these two things side by side. Okay, now it's here. Imagine that we erase this again. We erase this, we save it, and basically before we have these two boxes are different. If now instead of doing that we have introduced here the property box sizing, and we introduce border box, and we introduce the same kind of property here, and we save it, immediately these two boxes have the same size. And this is something very, very useful, and we are going to use this several times in our document. Okay, this is the first thing that I would like to show you. The second thing that I would like to show you is the difference between block elements and inline elements. And to do that is very simple. I'm going to use exactly the same document, but we are going to erase this because we don't need it, and we are going to erase this because and Control S, and now the document, as you have seen here, is disappearing. And now what we are going to study is the block elements. I'm going to introduce here block elements, is block elements, and just a title for this part of the course, for this part of the chapter. And now what we are going to do is to introduce two block elements. The first is going to be a paragraph that I'm going to type the hello world, and basically what I'm going to define here is a style that allows us the opportunity to visualize this. I'm going to define a style in which basically I'm going to introduce a border of 1 pixel. I'm going to introduce a solid blue line. Okay, now if we save this, Control S, we see that this document, this hello world, is a block element in the sense that it's going as long as the screen goes. I'm going to introduce another element that is a div. Div is also a block element. I'm going to define a style of border, and the border is going to be of 1 pixel as well, and I'm going to define a solid red line, and here basically I'm going to type exactly the same hello world. Okay, if we save this, we also have this element is covering the entire screen. This is basically two block elements. What we are going to do now is to introduce an inline element, and we are going to observe the difference between both type of elements. Now we are going to introduce an inline element that is going to be an span. We are going to introduce within a paragraph, we are going to introduce, this is an inline span, this is an inline span, and here basically what we are going to introduce is an span element, and also to visualize it I'm going to introduce some basic styles. It's going to be a border of 1 pixel and solid ref. I'm going to close this, and here we introduce hello world, and here we conclude with type some more elements, some more characters to see how this works inside a paragraph. Okay, Control S, and basically as you can observe in this part of the screen, the main difference is that the hello world when we have an inline element is only covering this kind of the width or the size of the part of the screen that is only required for that particular part. This is very important because when we are designing this in the web page, this is very important to take into account to have a very nice design. Okay, basically this concludes the first part of this chapter 3, in which basically we have studied the box sizing, and we have also studied the block and the inline elements. Okay, see you in the next video.